Hey, this is Lee and Cooper. We're back with another BFK in Brief. We're really excited to be joined by Scott Gerber today. Scott's the principal and CEO of the hospitality industry leader, the Gerber Group, which owns a number of venues in New York City, Washington, D.C., Atlanta. He's also a member of the board of the New York City Hospitality Alliance. Thanks for being here today, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
And the impetus for having you is the recent decision that came down in New York to push back the quote unquote curfew for New York City restaurants and bars to 10 o'clock. Doesn't, to an outsider, might not feel like that big of a change, but how are people in the industry viewing it?
Yeah, I think it's it's going to have a huge impact on us. I mean, it's starting tonight. That 2 hour difference. I mean, it was bad enough when they put the curfew on for midnight. We own bars that are now acting more as restaurants than as bars. And what I mean by that is that you have to sit down at the table. You have to order food with your drinks. You can't order from the bar. You can't walk around. So they're really acting as restaurants. But our clientele, wants to get out. They want to socialize with their friends. All of our places are obviously socially distanced. We have the, fortunate, positive part of our business where we have a lot of rooftops, so we're outside. But pushing it back to 10 o'clock means that our last reservation is basically at 8 o'clock, with everybody having to be out by 10. And we think that by looking at where our numbers have been over the past couple of months, not having that business between 10 and 12 is probably going to have a 30 to 40% reduction in our overall revenues. That combined with it getting cold outside, so the outdoor venues are not as important as they once were. I mean, you can heat them a little bit, but it's still pretty cold out. And with the 25% limited occupancy inside, it makes it virtually impossible to get through this.
Scott, practically speaking, do you think there are other things that the governor could have done that would have potentially made more of a difference and not impacted restaurants in the same way?
I don't know, and I don't know that this is really going to have an impact on the safety of our guests. I mean, the reality is that I think the way the governor is looking at it is the old what happened yesterday before the pandemic, how bars were operating. People were walking around, mingling, going to a bar. Maybe you let your guard down and you get a little bit more familiar with somebody that you've met as you have a couple of cocktails. And I think that's the way he's looking at it. Today, it's not like that. You can't walk up to a bar and get a drink. You can't go over and meet somebody that you don't know. So you're really sitting down at a table with friends. And whether it's 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, I don't think that your interaction with your friend is going to change. But I just think that this is, unfortunately, a politician that in his mind believes that, people are going to have too much to drink between 10 and 12, let their guard down and spread the infection, which I don't agree.
So do you think that this will lead to, I mean, the obvious question is, do you think that specifically in New York City, that this is going to be, that this could potentially be the difference between a restaurant surviving the winter or not surviving the winter? 100%.
I mean, it was already bad enough, to only limit us to 25% on the inside. But I think this is really just, I forget the number. I think it's close to about 50% of the restaurants and bars have already closed, may never reopen. I think you're going to see, unfortunately, a lot more now because a lot of the PPP money has been running out like at the end of October, now in November and December. So once people get through spending their PPP money, they're not going to be able to survive. And this is just like another nail in the coffin. I mean, for me, I would rather, I would love to see this Restaurant Acts bill just passed. And if they want to, look, I'm not minimizing COVID at all. I mean, I had it, my wife, my whole family had it back in March, and it's not fun. But I think that if you want to if you think the way to contain it is by making everybody stay at home, then close down the restaurants for the next couple of months, pass the Restaurants Act, fund us, and so we can pay our rent, so we can pay our purveyors, so we can pay our staff. And then when, the scientists say, okay, well, now it's safe to come out again, then we can reopen. But by kind of killing us slowly is really just destroying an industry that I think is going to have such a negative impact on, not only New York, but every city. I mean, we're social animals. We need to go out. And I think to just kill us, is the wrong move.
Yeah, I saw a survey came out yesterday that 88% of New York City restaurants were unable to pay their rent in October. This
Yeah.
obviously is not going to make it any easier.
Right.
Do you have a sense? Obviously you're very involved in the industry. You're part of the board of the Hospitality Alliance. Is there any hope of the Restaurants Act passing before January 20th, or is this just not going to happen? In the next couple of months, which sound like a critical couple of months for the New York City
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, this thing has been, I think it was passed in the House months ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not really optimistic that much is going to get done. I mean, there was another, PPP plan in place that, has been negotiated and continues to get negotiated. I'm just not optimistic that anything's going to get done before January.
Is there any version of the Restaurants Act on a city or state level in New York that could provide, large amounts of resources for restaurants in the next couple months?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we were really hopeful that, there was going to be another round of PPP. I mean, PPP allowed us to get through the past 3 months. Fortunately for us, we have a lot of landlords that are our partners. So we're in a lot of hotels. So, these next couple of months, for whatever reason, we can't pay our rent, we're partners, and they're going to understand that, as they were when we first closed down and we didn't have PPP. So, we're in that fortunate position in some of our places. Others, don't have landlords that are that understanding. And then, in fairness, there are certain landlords that also have mortgages that they have to pay. So they're not in a position to just say to their restaurant tenant, okay, don't worry about paying me the rent, I'll cover it. They have real estate taxes to pay on their building. They might have a mortgage, and they're not getting relief on that side either.
Yeah. I guess maybe the final question, unless Lee has anything else, is there any advice? I mean, we do have a lot of clients who are small restaurant owners in and around New York City, and is there any kind of general overarching advice that you're giving to restaurant owners in this position?
Yeah, I mean, what we did back, right away is we just had to conserve our capital as much as possible. We had to make a lot of hard decisions, when we closed. Fortunately, when there was the, payroll assistance for unemployment, the people that we had to furlough, were okay. They could still feed their families. They were actually making, probably a little bit more money than they were working when they were working. But I think the most important thing is really to try and have very candid conversations with your landlord. And in my opinion, landlords should understand that if I go out, who's coming to take my place?
Yeah.
There's nobody behind me. So, I think, we're one of the best operators in the business. So if we can't make it work during these times, who do they think is going to be behind us? So most landlords do not want dark spaces. And what we're saying is, look, work with us now. And when times get back to being good, we're willing to have you participate more than you were in the past. We're not looking to say, okay, let's keep the same deal that we had when we were making a lot more money. Let's be partners. And that's, like I said, for us, we do have a lot of, landlords that are actually our partners. So in the good times, they do better with us. So I would say that's probably the most important thing. And I think now that this has been going on for so long, I think that landlords realize that they should work with their existing tenants to try and get them through this. So when the time comes where restaurants are open and they can put people in there, 50, 75% again, they'll have a great operator. To go out and find the new operator, I mean, is going to be really difficult. And I also don't think that there are tons of people that are so excited about going into the restaurant business right now. I mean, it's hard to see through to the future. Even in great times, a great restaurant can make, 10 to 15% on the bottom line. It's never really been about, we can make all this money. It's really been more of a passion project. And now that I think, great restaurateurs have been just beaten down so much. I mean, fortunately, we got some relief on the personal guarantees and those not being enforceable. Whether or not those will be upheld in the future, who knows? But, can you imagine, you own a restaurant and you put your whole life's work into it. And now, besides the fact that the restaurant doesn't work, now you have to worry about them coming after your bank account and your house. And I mean, it's a nightmare. But nobody has credit when they sign a lease for a restaurant. So sometimes you don't have any option. But, I think you just being, transparent with your landlord and hopefully getting, them to work with you is, the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think collaboration, so that those tenants that are looking to try to collaborate with their landlords are finding more success than those that are either ignoring the problem or coming at it in a more adversarial way from the get-go. That's at least what we're seeing. There's an appetite to collaborate, but it requires the right approach.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I just had one final question, which is for those restaurateurs or bar owners out there watching this who don't really have anybody to talk to, or are looking for advice, or looking to kind of pick somebody's brain. Obviously, you're a member of the Hospitality Alliance. Are there resources for bar owners and restaurants that they could kind of tap into either there or elsewhere to kind of get some advice or to lean on the shoulder of a more experienced party?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can always, get in touch with the Hospitality Alliance, but, I mean, if there's anybody that's watching this that, wants to, contact me, you can share my contact information with them. I'd be more than happy to talk to them about it. We've been doing this for a long time, almost 30 years. So we do have a lot of experience in different situations with landlords. We've been through the ups and downs, never to this extent. I mean, in our business, it was like, in good times, people drink, and bad times, sometimes they drink more. So, even in the bad times, our business was still pretty good. Now, I can't say that. I am confident that, we'll get through this. It's definitely painful, but I also think that coming out the other side, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, for smart restaurateurs. If you think about all these vacant spaces that are built out and turnkey, I think if people have the appetite to go back into this business or to go into this business, you're going to be able to get into it with a lot less capital because there are going to be so many more spaces that are built out and closed.
Yeah. All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to chat with us. This was really valuable, and I'm sure people watching it will get a lot out of this. We will share your contact info, and yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me.
All right. Take care.
See ya.